Welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
Gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hey there, my fabulous listener. Welcome to episode 132 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you, as always, for lending me your ears today. I know you have lots of choices out there, and I really do appreciate you making me one of them. If you're a first-time listener, then super welcome to you. If you're a return listener, then super welcome to you too. I'm really happy that you've joined me here for this episode. I've got a great guest, and I can't wait to dig into it. I'm, of course, the host, Jen Donovan, and it's my job to make your business life simpler. Hence the name of my podcast, Small Business Made Simple. One of the ways that I can help make your business life a little bit simpler is if you come and join my like-minded business owners group in Facebook. Just go to Facebook, type in like-minded business owners and come and join up. It's a fantastic group, but it's more than that. It's a community of amazing small business owners in there who are willing to help, who are willing to give you advice and also give you tips and tricks. So it's a great little place to hang out. I'd love to see you in there as well. But like I said, I have a great guest on this week, and she's all about unlocking your inner designer. And if you just thought to yourself, Jen, I don't have an inner designer, then let me assure you that you do. After hearing from Jacqui from White Deer, she's going to change your mind. She has so many tips and tricks and wonderful ideas that can help you look like a designer even when you're not. I met Jacqui when we both did some workshops for the Australian Cake Decorators Network with Liz Wright. If you're a podcast listener for a little while, you might have remembered Liz from episode 127, where we chatted all about membership business models. So that's where I met Jacqui. But Jacqui is actually a designer herself, but she's turned her online design into a teaching model. So she basically teaches small business owners all the tips and tricks that she knows as a designer to help you self-design. Be a self-designer? Not quite sure. Yes, to help you become a self-designer of your own brand and of your own business. So she's amazing at what she does, and I'm pretty chuffed that she's agreed to come on my podcast and have a bit of a chat with us. So go and grab yourself a cuppa or settle into the driver's seat, because there is a lot of wisdom coming your way from Jacqui. Jacqui, I am really excited to have you on the podcast because I get to talk branding with someone, and branding with someone who's an expert. But for people who maybe don't know you on my podcast, could you just introduce yourself, your business, and tell us a little bit about you?
Hello, I'm so excited to chat as well. I just branding is my fave. Talking about graphics, talking about anything visual for our businesses is that really lights me up. So I'm so glad to be here. My name is Jacqui, as you said, and I'm from White Deer Graphic Design. So I started off my business doing all the things designing for wonderful business owners. And then a couple of years ago, I was like, hold up. There are a lot of small businesses out there that are doing their own graphics, and they're not doing the best job of it. And what am I doing to support these people? And what I found is a lot of businesses can't afford someone like me to do all their stuff for them. So I thought, let's switch the tables, let's turn things around, let's actually try to help these people. And so I ended up creating a course that is for small business owners to help them to do their own graphics, but to do them really well. So to actually do graphics that actually make sense, do graphics that are consistent, do graphics that are actually going to support their business rather than looking really unprofessional and also confusing them and their audience. So now I spend a lot of my time just helping my students out, creating designs with them, and supporting their businesses. So it's really, really fun. And I love the teaching. I love it. It lights me up as well. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, beautiful. So many questions just from that answer. Firstly, why White Deer? What does White Deer mean, or where does that come from?
Look, I'd like to say that it was some really meaningful thing, but when I first started my business, I think 8 years ago or so, I was like, I want a name. I want it to not be super polarizing. I want it to be boring. No, I don't want to be boring, but I wanted something that wasn't related to my name. And so I went and talked to a business friend, and then we just started to come up with all these different like adjective, noun, adjective, noun, adjective, noun of like all these different names. And then we said white deer, and I was like, that sits really well. And why I chose it was because it wasn't a certain color. Because one of my short lists was green couch graphic design. No, stupid. But I stuck with white deer because I could think of a logo the second we said it. But then after I came up with the name, Jen, I went and researched stuff about white deers, and you see I came up with this whole spiel about why it was a great business name. And white deers apparently back in the day were very, very rare. And so when people hunted them, I'm not really a great fan of hunting, but people love to hunt, and they would find a white deer was a really big deal, and to kill it. And so I was like, white deer is all about finding that one special thing for your business or your perfect branding and the thrill of the chase and the blah, 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 blah. So yeah, that was where it came from.
That's awesome. And I love that, there is, two different answers to that. I was talking to someone quite some time ago now, and I asked them where their business name from, and the answer came back in a question, and I didn't really like that. It's just like, well, so what does it mean to you? And I'm like, no, I don't want to answer that question. I want to know what it means. So I'm so glad you gave me a definitive answer, because if you had asked me what white deer meant, I wouldn't have had a good answer for you. So.
The answer would be nothing. It's just a name.
Oh dear. And I love the fact that you, listened to your audience and took your business down a road because you could see the need. And I think even though, it probably came quite simplistically to you, or maybe it didn't, but so many small business owners one track mind, or they've got a vision and they forget to listen to their audience, and they forget to listen to what is actually wanted out there in the marketplace. So that's a good little lesson for everybody to start the podcast as well, is put your listening ears on. If your business isn't quite going where you want it to, or you're looking for a change, listen to your audience.
So true. Definitely agree with that.
Yeah, beautiful. So what made you start in graphic design? Where's your passion come from? Were you always that artist at school that people like me that didn't have an artistic bone in my body envied?
Look, I haven't actually been asked this question very much, and I personally wouldn't say that I'm super arty or creative. I cannot draw. In fact, a couple of years ago, my mum's like, you're a designer that can't draw. This is stupid. I'm going to pay for you to have drawing lessons. And so I went to these drawing lessons, and I hated it. Not because the drawing teacher was bad, but because I just found it so hard. And so my graphic design is more about combining beautiful images like photos and stock images and fonts and colors that people have already created, and putting that together as one kind of item. And I guess that does definitely involve a lot of creativity. And I did look, I'll be honest, I was a scrapbooker. I made some earrings, and I had a little jewelry business, and I made cards, but I didn't draw, So I sit in the middle of this, not super arty, but I did really enjoy the crafts. Yeah. And I think that's probably where a little bit of my creativity kind of got sparked. And I ended up, how it started, this is a little bit weird, but there was this online website I was really into as a kid. It was called Neopets. And on this website, you could go on and you could design mini websites for people. And so I'd go onto the forums and be like, hey, I can design you this website. And I'd literally open Microsoft Paint and design things and do all this. And that was when my love of design was started. And I kind of just got addicted to doing designs for people and having them really help them, and then being like, oh, that's so amazing, thank you. I'm like, yeah, you're the best. So yeah, that was kind of how it started. Then I obviously went to...
Every time I click Microsoft Paint, I'm like, no, that's not what I want. Like, I've got no idea what that whole program does. And yet you use
I don't recommend it. Yeah, it had its place back in the day.
Yeah, beautiful. So you mentioned earlier that you have a course for do-it-yourself, I guess, designers. So is your recommendation that's probably not the right way to ask that question. So should people be designing their own designs, or should people be getting a professional designer? And, is there certain things that professional designers should do if you are encouraging people to do DIY. Is that right? DIY? Yeah, I had it right.
DIY.
DIY. I didn't have it right. Oh,
No,
goodness.
you
It's
didn't.
not even Friday. All right, move on.
All right, so it's a great question and a really important one for pretty much every business to consider at some point in their journey. So I always say that if you have the funds to hire a good graphic designer, then absolutely do so. They will save you a lot of effort and a lot of time and make sure that your business is looking schmick. At the same time, there's a few things to consider. Obviously, there are price points of different designers. So you could choose a really, really good designer and pay good money for them, or you could choose a designer that's fresh out of the gate and is just charging really, really cheap. I say that warily to take a fresh out of the gate designer, not because they'll do a bad job, because they might do a bad job. And so you just need to be more on the ball as a business owner, making sure that, because when I first started doing graphic design, I wasn't thinking through how to actually brand a business for long term. I wasn't helping them think through their audience. I wasn't helping them think through how they want to appear in the marketplace. I wasn't helping them think through all these things I now teach my students. And so when you hire a cheap designer, you'll have to be doing all that stuff yourself and thinking these things through really well. But then if you hire a professional designer, they're going to probably help you step you through those things a lot. And so if you can hire one, please do so. But a lot of the time when we're starting out in business, we don't have the funds to hire a graphic designer or a good one. And so it comes back to us doing it ourselves. And it can be done really badly, or it can also be done really well. But you need to know there's some foundational stuff around that. But at the same time, I also have a lot of my students are established business owners that had a designer do maybe their logo and a couple of their key branding items. And then now they do their own stuff if they just have to whip out a social media post, or they just want to create a free PDF or a free opt-in. And so I think there can be a good balance, and you'll probably know what you don't feel comfortable with designing. But at the same time, you can be equipped to design if that's something you'd like to take charge of and take the reins of. But in essence, if you have the money, hire a great designer. If you don't, you can do it yourself, but make sure you do it really well. And I just sort of something too of, there are things a designer should do for you. A lot of designers should say that they should do your logo. However, I do love to teach that. There are so many things I don't just to say it to anyone. If you're listening to this podcast and think, oh, I should design my logo. No, there are a lot of things you must know and must consider. So don't go doing that or just on a whim. Hire a designer if you can, or come to my course. But there are a lot of other things you can design for your business yourself. But there are some things, say you've hired a massive billboard, get a designer to do the design for that. Yeah. Don't go doing that yourself. If you're getting 10,000 things printed, get a designer, don't do that yourself. If you're designing a 500-page workbook that's going to get proper hard copy printed, get a designer, don't do it yourself. Like, there's things that you should definitely not do yourself. But at the same time, for a lot of us, maybe more online businesses, there's a lot of things we can do ourselves.
Yeah, look, and I 100% agree with that answer. I must admit that I do see people designing their own logos. And when I say designing their own logos, like, I designed my first logo. I couldn't when I was first starting out, but I designed it, as in I took elements from, a lot of places, and I designed it in Photoshop. So it was still unique. I find a lot of people, and I know we'll talk about Canva, which is one of my favorite tools. And I know it's one of your favorite tools as well. But I do find people that, because, I work with a lot of small businesses. I spend a lot of time on social media, and I will see their logos and I'm like, yep, seen that on Canva. Yep, seen that on Canva. And like, I'm not talking social posts here. I'm actually talking branding your business with, your logos. And I do think it's wrong to a certain degree. I really think they just need to, if there's one thing that you pay a designer to do, or you've got to think outside the box with, it is your logo, because it really just, says so much about you. And the last thing you want is someone with nearly the exact same popping up on your feed.
So yeah, 100% agree. So that's the main, like, when I teach this stuff, I say, firstly, don't use a template for your logo, because you're right. It's not unique. Anyone else can use it. Even if you start with a template and edit it, fine, do that for social media posts, but don't do that for your logo. Yeah. Your logo must be unique. And even if you want to grow, you can't trademark that, because it's not unique. It needs to be unique. And your logo is the foundation that your rest of your brand is built upon. And so when I'm teaching my students how to do this, I'm like, make sure you think about the concept behind your logo. Like, what do you want your business to represent? what fonts do you want to use in your overall branding that you can use in your logo so that it's all really cohesive and consistent? Same with your colors, same with everything. How can you, the biggest mistake I see people make with logos? Two biggest mistakes. I was like, I shouldn't have said the biggest because there's so many, but two of them. One of them is that it's unreadable and it's not clear. They're choosing the wrong fonts, or they're making it really unclear or just ugly. But the other one is that they make it too complicated. A logo needs to be simple. It needs to be something that you can apply to a t-shirt, to a billboard, to a sign, to a business card, to a social media post. No matter if you have all those elements in your business, pretend that your logo would have to, because your logo needs to be really simple. It needs to not have a heap of watercolor textures, have a heap of different elements, have heaps of different little icons, have heaps of different gold glittery bits. It needs to be simple. When it's simple, it's versatile, it doesn't date so quickly, and it can be really conceptual and strong. And then if you want to use gold elements and watercolors and everything, please do that, but do that in the rest of your branding. I think that the biggest thing I love to teach people is that your logo and your branding are two separate things. You can have your logo and then you have your brand style, which could have watercolors and paint strokes and collagey effects, but those elements are not within your logo. Your logo is simple.
Yeah, beautiful. And if you have any doubt, look at the top 100 companies in the world and look at their logos. There is a they have millions in marketing budgets, and there's a reason why they are simplistic. I love that. So let's move on from the conversation of logos into actually like graphics, because I know that, this is a lot of what you teach is about the graphics that we will use on our socials, in our marketing, in our email marketing, whatever it is that we're doing, that, I guess is representing us, and also catching the eye of the person we want, trying to catch the attention of our buyer, because at the end of the day, we're in business to sell, so we've got to catch the eye of the buyer. So what are some important things to think about in both the design and execution of creating your own graphics?
Yeah, absolutely. Because as you say, graphics are often the first point of contact that someone is going to have with your business. If you don't look the part, people are going to keep on scrolling by, keep on driving by, keep on chucking your flyer in the bin, or the recycling, because they're not connecting with it, or it doesn't make sense to them, or it doesn't look professional. And so we can use design really cleverly to capture attention of potential buyers and say, hey, I'm for you. Pay attention to me. I want to be able to help you and serve you with my product or service. And so there are so many things to consider, but some of the favorite ones I love to discuss is following a few different design principles. And so one that I really love to chat about is hierarchy. And it sounds a little bit like fancy pants, but in essence, it's just about the idea of taking your customer or potential customer or client audience on a visual journey when they look at your graphic. So say you've got a social media post and you want to advertise, you've got a new soap that you're selling. It's a new release and you can buy it at this website and it costs this much. You need to think about the journey. Like when someone sees that graphic, if you just put the price really big, obviously no one's going to want to, you're not capturing the attention of why someone wants to look at that graphic. You want to say new soap. That's the point of your graphic. That's what you're trying to communicate. And so that's the main message you need to convey. And so when you're designing your graphic, you make sure that the text new soap is the largest. And this is a really plain example, but we need to apply this to all of the different graphics we're creating. How can I take my audience on a journey? I would tell them there's a new soap. Then I would say maybe a picture of the new soap. Then I would take them on a journey saying, maybe this is the stuff that's in this new soap and why you might want it. This is the price of said new soap. And then this is where you can get new soap. And so taking them on a visual journey throughout the graphic is really important because that way we don't overwhelm our audience. So you would have new soap in the largest text, and then you'd put the next size text in the next, you take them on that journey. And lots of people don't think about that stuff really, really well. And when they do, they potentially overload people. They either have everything on the image is of the same importance. So hierarchy is just about things of greater importance and lower importance. And so instead of some people put new soap, price, website, all the same size text. And that really confuses our audience because when they see the graphic, they're like, oh, there's so much going on there. I don't understand. Scroll past unless they're really invested in you. So we want to make sure we're taking that journey and we're stepping people through what they need to know. and we're helping them to understand our business. And so that's one of my favorite things to talk about, of just using font size and text color to really take them on a journey, and to also kind of like parallel to that of, don't try to say too much in your graphics. If you're making a flyer for your product or service, don't write your whole life story in your essay. Keep it simple, because people don't read everything. They need to be stepped through. They need to be taken on a journey, and they need to be told what to read, and they need things to grab their attention. I'm not interested in new soap, so I would probably scroll past your image. But if someone was interested in new soap, this is such a weird example, but I'm going with it. If someone was interested in new soap, when they saw a new soap really big, it would capture their attention. And in a saturated marketplace, we need to capture people's attention. So thinking about, how can we do that? What is my main core message of whatever graphic I'm creating, and make sure that message is standing out, and then take people on a journey towards the action you want them to take. Because there's rarely a time where we don't want people to make an action, whether even if it's just to form a connection with us, not necessarily to buy, whether it's to download something, or whether it's to send us an email. There's always a reason to what we're creating. And design is, I like to say, it's not about prettiness. Design is about communication. We want to be communicating a purpose. Otherwise, it's just art, and art is beautiful. I love art, but art is not design, and we can't get caught up with doing heaps of pretty designs, or not even pretty designs, but if they're not communicating. So that's my tip. Make sure your designs are communicating.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I hope I'm not too wrong, but did you have like an Instagram reel or something not so long ago talking about the hierarchy of text?
If I didn't, I should soon. I can't, I might. I honestly, look, I've got a new baby. I'm not remembering what I'm doing with my life right now.
I thought that I had remembered an Instagram reel that you did where you were showing, in Canva, you were doing like a Canva tutorial, and I thought that was about hierarchy, but I could be wrong. But I do love those graphics that you see sometimes, and it's kind of like, it gives you that visual of how you would read it. So people will read this, and then they'll read that, and then they'll read this type of thing. And it really does. And you kind of like, you're reading the words, and you're like, yeah, I did. I did exactly
the exact order. You are so manipulating me right now, but I it helps. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm cranky and so happy for you at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah, that is a perfect explanation.
Yeah. Here I am thinking I was different, and clearly I'm just normal. Very sad. Very sad. So I think that's a great tip to think about that. And I'm no graphic designer, but I am a consumer. So I do notice those things as well, that sometimes an image is just too overwhelming, and you do scroll past, despite the fact that they might be the absolute best person that I need to know to solve the problem that I have. But
exactly,
haven't caught my attention with that. So
that's a tip as well of, as a consumer, start paying attention to graphics you're seeing around you, and be like, oh, that really worked to attract me. And then stop and think why. Like, what have they done? What is helping grab me? And then use those same techniques when you're creating your own graphics.
Yeah, exactly. Put your marketing hat on, I will say to people, like, when they're looking at Facebook ads, well, what captures your attention? What do you read? And then you look up and you're like, oh, darn, that was sponsored. That was good. That got me. I thought that was just a
well done.
Oh dear, very good. So what are some tools to use if you're DIYing your own brand, or not so much branding, but your own graphics as such?
Yeah. So you can DIY your own brand, but there are those things you need to know. But for anyone just doing their own graphics, well, the same answer really. Canva is my top tool because it is free. You can also choose to use the pro version, which I definitely recommend, but you can definitely start with free and do a lot on that. And Canva, if you haven't used it before, welcome to us changing your life.
Yeah. We accept wine and chocolates.
My mailing address, yes, no. It's a free online design platform that is really very well made and really user friendly, and a lot of people are using it, so there's heaps of help that you can find, and they're always doing updates. Like, I'm just anytime I open it up, I'm like, oh, they've changed something. Yes, this is so much better. But it's a great tool because it keeps things simple, so it's hard to stuff it up, and it's got lots of templates should you need them, and it's all there ready for you to use. So for example, something that back in the day I always got really frustrated with people doing graphics is they would squish a photo or they would stretch their logo. That can't happen in Canva because you can't change the ratios of a graphic. So that things like that makes it harder to mess up. But Canva is a really great tool, but my biggest tip for it is to just get in there and practice with it. And like any new thing that we do in our lives or in our business, we need to practice it. And when you first open it, you've never used it before, it's going to be a little bit overwhelming, but it will be a really useful tool for your business should you give it an hour or two of playing and just experimenting and having some fun with it. Explore where all the tools are, explore where everything is. I obviously have heaps of tutorials on this within my course, but just in general, sit down and play. When you play, you begin to learn. And as I said, there's heaps of templates in there. Now, as a designer, I don't always recommend templates, but I want to tell you when and if you can use templates and when you can't. Use a template if you are going to change it. So for a brand, one of the biggest things I love to talk about is that you need to have consistency. Consistency in the colors you're using for your graphics, consistency in the font you're using for your graphics, and consistency in the style you're using for your graphics. There are a ridiculous amount of reasons as to why that's really important for our business. Just to summarize, it's thinking about creating relationship with your audience. When you're consistent and everything makes sense and it's repeatable, people start to form a connection with you. Like, for example, my graphics are really purples and blues and pinky oranges. When people see my purple, they stop because they're like, oh, Jacqui's posting something. I want to stop and have a look at what she's saying. Or if Jen's posting her certain color, like we start to form a connection with people based on what we recognize of them. And in the online world or in the print world, when we see something recognized, that makes sense to us. So having that consistency is really important. It also helps to up your professionalism. Like you don't see Coke using all these crazy colors. You see them using red. Like there's consistency there. And so when you're using a template, you need to apply your brand. You need to apply your colors, your fonts, and your style. And go for it. Use a template if you're going to do that. But if you're not going to personalize your template, if you find, like, say, a social media post, like, oh, that's a really cool social media post, but it doesn't look like your brand, don't use it. It's just going to help muddy up your brand, and your customers or clients or audience are going to be like, oh, if they even see you. Otherwise, they're probably just scrolling past you because there's not making sense to them. So that's my favorite tool. Other favorite tools, pretty much just one, is Pinterest. As people that don't do heaps of design stuff, you're going to need inspiration, and Pinterest.com, you're welcome if you haven't heard of it before, is the greatest place to find inspiration. All you have to do is search things like graphic design or Instagram graphic design or feminine graphic design or design tips or whatever, and up will pop hundreds of graphics that are going to help you be inspired of the kind of things that you can try when you sit down to create your graphic.
Yeah, beautiful. Two of my favorite tools as well. I always, when I'm talking social media and marketing, in workshops and that sort of thing. And even though Pinterest technically isn't a social media platform, it's more of a search engine. I tell people to sign up for it. Even if you don't use it for business, it will blow your mind, the amount of
Yes.
content that is on there. I was working with some car mechanics not so long ago, and we were looking for a lead magnet to sort of build their email list because I'm a bit of an email freak. And it was kind of like, but what do I do for a lead magnet? I'm like, let's hop on Pinterest and have a look. Like we typed in, car mechanic or, tires or engines or something like that. And the amount of content that came up, like my clients were just like, what? I'm like, yeah,
Genius.
I know. It's not about copying. It's about being inspired by other content. And it's exactly what you were saying with templates. It's not about copying and using that template. It's being inspired by that template. And I often, will hop into Canva and I'll see maybe something that's a list or something. I'll think, oh, I could make that list, blah, 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 blah type of thing. I don't take the words that are there, but, you take the design of that and it inspires you to come up with something. Now, from Canva, I actually battled with for a long time. Couldn't use it, didn't understand it. It really made me cranky. And I remember getting an email from, someone who worked at a Shire council, and she had this graphic for a talk that I was coming to do. I'm like, wow, where did you do that? And she's, I did it in Canva. And I'm like, oh, if you can use it, I can use it. I've got to go and learn this. So I remember sitting at the football on YouTube, Googling how to use Canva or Canva for beginners. And that's how I started. But there is a learn section in Canva as well that you can go and watch a couple of little videos photos, and it'll basically make you move the mouse with them. So they're really handy tutorials as well.
Canva has some great resources. So take advantage of those. They're free and they're there.
Yeah.
You can do this.
Yeah. What are some things that you noticed that oh, and I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot here, that the pro version has that the free version doesn't have, that you use all the time? Like, what's the upsell there for you?
Oh, it's big. Okay, so in a nutshell, my favorite fun tool is the background removal tool.
Oh, which means is that unavailable in free?
Yeah.
People upsell.
Yeah, it's great. So if you don't know what we mean, if you upload a photo into Canva, then you can remove the background of it. So say there's a picture of me and I'm smiling really pretty and I'm like, I don't love the background behind me. I just press one button and I kid you not, Jen, it's better than Photoshop. Like the background removal capabilities on it is better than Photoshop. I sometimes background removal in Canva and then load into Photoshop for my own projects. Like it's that good. But in essence, background removal tool is really helpful, but from a more practical level, there is lots of really great things. Firstly, there's the resizing tools. That means that if you create an Instagram post and you want to change it to being a flyer, or you want to change it to be an Instagram story, there's one button and Canva will resize it for you.
That's why I bought. That's why
there we go. That's your reason.
That was the one tool that I went, that's going to make my life easier.
Yep. Another one is their brand kit. So that means that when you're creating your own brand using that consistency, you're picking your certain fonts and colors, you can load your colors and load your fonts into Canva, and they're always there ready for you to use. You don't have to go typing in hex codes or trying to find the right color in the color wheel. They're always right there waiting for you. You've also got access to all of the stock images. So there's thousands and probably millions of free, well, not free, once you pay for them, they're all free images, elements. So that's like different shapes and illustrations, videos. Like there's so much free stuff there once you actually pay for it. But unlike I have subscriptions to proper stock photo sites and I have to pay, I get like maybe 10 a month or whatever. With Canva, you get all of them once you pay. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There are so many. Oh, my other favorite is if you're designing your logo, you can save transparent PNGs in Canva Pro, which means that you can make your logo and save it so it doesn't have a white background box behind it. And that way you can overlay it over images and do anything like that. So there are a lot more pros to it, but those are probably my few favorites that I find the ones that get people over the edge.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, perfect. They're some of my favorites as well. I didn't realize the background removal was only for paid though. So
I should double check that at some point, but last I heard it was definitely only for pro.
They've got to have reasons for the upsell.
They do.
So when we're looking at design, and probably one of the questions that I get asked a little bit from people is about the perfection of design, and especially if people are Instagram people. So the need to have the perfect feed, the need to have the perfect story, or the perfect graphic before the reel, or things like that. So how do you, when you are DIYing, get over the perfection trap?
Yeah, so I like to really say to people that design isn't maths. Design isn't even statistics. Design doesn't have one right answer. There are millions of correct answers for design. And so oftentimes people get stuck. They sit down to design a graphic and they just fiddle, trying to find this ultimate design that does not exist. It does not exist. And so I just love to recommend to people, take the pressure off yourself. Like, it's okay if your design isn't perfect. Because to be honest, perfect might not even exist. If your design is communicating and it looks professional, then you have succeeded in your graphic. It doesn't have to be perfect. Because what I find is design is a place where a lot of people can procrastinate. We get up a graphic and we're like, oh, I'm going to make this social media post. And then 3 hours later, we're still working on a social media post. And friends, I love social media and I love my posts, but spending 3 hours on a post design is a waste of time. Your time is so much better spent on different areas, on your area of expertise, or growing your business in other ways. While I believe design is 100% pivotal, there's a certain point that is not going to improve your business anymore, or get you any more clients, or get you any more likes. We just need to post it and let it go, because we're just using it as a form of procrastination to make us feel like we're doing work, but we're not really. So yeah, that's something I like to tell people.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, when we're looking at something like Instagram's a bit of a bugger because you can
Yeah.
see someone's feed there and there. Like, it's not like Facebook, you can't really do that. You have to scroll and things like that. So, should there be an element of good branding in Instagram feeds, or is it really, as long as you are communicating the message that you need to the audience that you want to, then that is more important? Or is
Yeah.
there an element of people going to your Instagram feed and going,
Yeah. So it's a great question. And I think it's a personal one. But for me, I like to look at it in a couple of different angles. The first angle is, you kind of hinted to it there, if it's communicating to your audience. And I know that some people really, really care about a business's design aesthetic. They are going to go to your grid, your overall Instagram look, and they'll judge you based on that. Some people, though, couldn't care less. And so probably it's good. The good first thing is to get to know your audience. Are they the kind of people that really like things perfectly curated, or are they kind of people that like things more natural and more ad hoc? And so that's probably the first thing to consider. The second thing is to make sure that it's branded. So if you have a solid brand style, and you've set those certain colors and certain fonts and style for your brand, your grid is automatically going to look okay. Even if it's not perfectly curated and patterned and like designed to a T, it's still going to look thought out, professional, and put together, because you've kept that consistent kind of style. Then beyond that is when you can decide how much you'd like to have fun with this. And I say have fun because it shouldn't be something that inhibits you or takes the joy out of your business by trying to create this perfect grid. At one point, I was creating designs that were like a pink square, then a white square, then a pink square, then a white square. And that was suiting me really well for a little while. But then eventually I felt a bit jarred by it. And so I had to move on from that, because if we're feeling jarred by the way that we're curating our social media, then we're not going to be posting as much as we want. If we're not posting as much as we want, then we're not serving our audience. And if we're not serving our audience, we're not bringing in clients. And so we need to make sure that whatever we choose for our social media design is going to be serving us, is going to inspire us, and it's going to be looking professional for our audience. And so if you want to have a perfectly created feed because that is really lights you up and you have fun doing that, then absolutely go for your life and do it. But if that's going to really hold you back, then don't do it, but not at the sake of losing your consistent branding and losing your professionalism. There's a certain level, and then after that, it's just fun, but make sure that you are still giving it some time and some thought, because people do go to your grid and decide, are these guys for me, or are these guys not for me? Do I want to have these images popping up on my feed or not? Because if your images are really ugly, I'm probably not going to follow you unless your content is spot on, because I don't want those pictures popping up in my feed. It's not visually appetizing for me. So yeah, those are some things I like to consider.
Yeah. And I guess, the other thing to consider is that perfect to you is not perfect to me. So you might think you have a perfect grid and it might be all beautiful and pink, and then someone goes, oh, I hate pink.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Which is why you need to get to know your audience.
Yeah. Perfect tip. Great. Is there anything at all that we haven't touched on, Jacqui, that, around that design or around that DIY design that we need to touch on before we finish up?
I could probably talk on this for about 15 hours, Jen, but maybe let's give this one last tip. When you're considering your branding, I guess as a follow-on from what we're just talking about, is really consider your audience. Get to know the people that you are trying to speak to in your business. And you can do this in a multitude of ways. Firstly is, I'm sure you've spoken at this before, but niche down. Make sure you know who you want to work with, because you're not going to be working with everyone in the world, because you're not water and not everyone loves you. Not everyone loves water, but they all need it. But so if your business, whoever your business will best serve should be your niche, and then create designs that are going to target them and appeal to them and make sense to them. And so you can do this by asking them. If you have an ideal client or customer that you've worked with before, say, hey, can I shout you out for a coffee? And can I just pick your brain about the kind of designs you like? You can go onto Pinterest, find a few pretty designs and say, hey, which one of these two do you prefer? Which of these fonts do you like? Which of these colors are you drawn to? Or even just do a poll in your Instagram stories. You could put 2 color palettes up and do the poll feature and say, do you like these colors or do you like these colors? And there's not going to be one perfect answer, but the more that we get to know our audience, the more our designs will target them. I also like to say that when you're thinking about your branding and you're choosing that, your designs should also reflect, there's 3 circles. So one of those circles is your audience, but the other 2 circles that overlap, when they overlap, combine what I like to call your perfect brand. And that's what you love as a person, because your brand is often based around you as a small business owner. So what do you love as a person? And also, what is your business about? Do you want people to feel really fun, or do you want people to feel really calm, or do you want to look really, really professional and minimalistic, or do you want to be like a fast food restaurant and use red and yellow and like these quirky cartoonish kind of fonts? Like, think through what your brand wants to represent, think through who you are, and think through who your audience is, and find the overlap of those 3 areas, and you'll often find your perfect brand. And so, as someone who likes mustard and black and white and purple, I didn't use all of those in my branding, but I found that purple kind of was a good overlap between what I liked and what my audience liked, and what I wanted to represent as a business.
Yeah, right. Great last tip. I love that. Thank you so much, Jacqui. For anyone who's listening who might be interested, could you just tell us a little bit about your course that you have, like, and what people might get from joining like a course all about helping them with their branding? Because I really do think that people get stumped on their branding, and for me, they get stumped on what to post. But once they work out what to post, then they get stumped on, how to design that message, I guess. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you hit the nail on the head there of in business, we need to be supported, and we need to not have roadblocks that we're kind of blocking ourselves with. And so I like to remove those roadblocks so people can feel confident to show up in their businesses, because I know even as a designer, when I first started, I hadn't picked my niche, and I hadn't really done my audience research, and the graphics I was creating were fine-ish, but I wasn't proud of them, and I shrunk away. I didn't want to direct people to my Instagram. I didn't want to give people my business card because I wasn't proud of it. And we're not proud of our businesses, we don't show up. When we don't show up, we're not able to serve our audience. So that's the thing I love to give people, is this confidence in their business to really be proud of what they have to offer and proud to put it out there. And also confidence that I can design this, I can put this out there into the world, and it's not going to take me 10 hours, it's going to take me 20 minutes, because Jacqui taught me how to do it right, and I know this is working, I know this is attracting my audience, and I know this is communicating. And so the course is all about kind of setting a really strong design foundation, because I don't just talk about templates, because that's what a lot of tutorials do. It's you just follow me exactly and create exactly what I've made, or use my exact templates. I want you to create your own unique brand, and I want you to have lifelong skills that support your business to grow, not just to copy. And so we go through teaching lots of design principles and design elements to give you lots of confidence and to give you really robust skills, but also that are done in a really normal person way. This isn't a course for designers, it's a course for small business owners, because they're the people that I want to help. If you're a designer, you're welcome to join. I think I've had one designer join. They still learned stuff, which was cool, but this is for everyday people. And so we go through design foundation, how to create your logo if you'd like to do that, and then how to create all the graphics that you need, because now you understand color, you understand fonts, you understand hierarchy, balance, and clean space, and all these things that help you to have really designs that are communicating and looking good. And so at the end is my favorite part, because the final module is just full of tutorials on how to make a cover photo well, how to make a social media post well, how to do this really well. So you've got people we call it the design agency in your pocket, because you get to have a little design agency in your back pocket, and when you need to design your podcast cover because you're going to release one, there's a tutorial for that, and so awesome. Yeah, it's really good fun. And then we have a community there where I jump on every single month and help people in real time. I get their Canva designs and I edit them for them so they can see what they could improve on or how they could change things. And they get the Facebook group where they get to chat with each other and kind of give each other feedback. And I get to say, like, I helped a lady today work out a color palette. She'd work out 3 colors. She needed 1 more. I was like, what about this one? She's like, oh, that's perfect. Thank you. So giving that actual support as well, because I think design is really helpful, but sometimes you need a second eye. And I love being that for my students.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge around design, and especially the DIY, and I got it right that time.
Well done.
DIY design, because small business owners don't always have the ability to hire graphic designers, and there are so many great tools out there, 2 of which we've mentioned here today in Canva and Pinterest, that can really help inspire small business owners, but sometimes they just need a little bit of help, as as do I and most of us. So, yeah, so it's been such a great chat, Jacqui. Thank you so much. How can people get in contact? Where would you like to send them if someone's interested in knowing more?
Firstly, hello, thank you. I'm so glad you're interested. But you can just head to my website, whitedeer.com.au/hangout, and there will be all the information you need. It's got a little freebie in there that's going to really help you kind of get you started on your DIY journey really well. And there's information about the course, should you want it, and different things like that. So if you head to whitedeer.com.au/hangout, I'll be there. And if you want to hang out on Instagram too, I'm at whitedeergd for graphic design. And I show up there very regularly, unless I've been scared off it at some point between when you listen to this and when you come to my Instagram. I have my times of hating it and times of loving it. But yeah,
yes.
I'd love to chat to you there as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. I will have all those links in the show notes, of course. But yeah, thanks for giving up your afternoon and chatting graphic design with us.
Thank you for having me.
I really hope you enjoyed that chat with Jacqui. I certainly learned a thing or two and really enjoyed that chat for sure. Like I said, all the links are in the show notes, and you will find the show notes at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/132. There, of course, all Jacqui's information will be in the show notes, is what I meant to say. If you need some help with your marketing or even just some business help, then don't forget you have the opportunity to book a discovery call with me, and we can chat about your goals and your struggles and your roadblocks and really what's holding you back and how I can actually help with that. You can go to the show notes and find the link there. Otherwise, I have a Calendly link, so calendly.com/jen-smm/discovery, or of course just come to the show notes and you will see it then. It's much easier to do that. But that is all for episode 132. I will be back next Thursday with another great episode to help you simplify your business in 2021. If you're enjoying the podcast, then please don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode, and maybe even share this with another superstar business owner who's doing that daily grind, who might just happen to like some design tips that Jacqui has for us here today. If you have time for a rating and a review, then fantastic. Shout out to you. Would love you to do that, of course. And I will be back next week for episode 133. But whatever you do, remember, my small business peeps, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.